The grand ballroom of the Global Leadership Summit shimmered with chandeliers and the low hum of polished conversation. Journalists, diplomats, and world leaders mingled beneath the golden lights, their laughter punctuated by the clicking of champagne glasses. It was one of those evenings where politics met performance, every smile calculated, every gesture captured. At the center of it all, Barack Obama moved through the crowd with the quiet ease of a man who no longer needed to prove anything. He had just delivered the keynote address, an eloquent reflection on empathy, leadership, and unity that had drawn 2 standing ovations. His words lingered in the air like the soft echo of wisdom. Just as the applause faded, another figure entered the room, Melania Trump. Graceful, impeccably dressed, and carrying an air of restrained confidence, she made her way across the floor. She was there representing a foundation initiative, but whispers followed her. People noticed how her presence contrasted sharply with Obama's grounded charisma. If Obama represented intellect and calm authority, Melania embodied elegance mixed with guarded pride. Their paths crossed near a cluster of foreign delegates who quickly stepped aside, sensing that something interesting was about to unfold. Obama turned with his characteristic warmth. "Mrs. Trump," he greeted, offering a polite nod. "Good to see you here. How have you been?" Melania smiled, though her expression was cool. "Doing very well, thank you," she replied. "I enjoyed your speech. It was thoughtful. But I think sometimes people forget that leadership is not only about words and empathy. It is also about strength. About knowing when to be firm." The shift in tone was subtle but unmistakable. The conversation had turned from cordial to pointed in seconds. Obama tilted his head slightly, studying her. Around them, a few attendees pretended to check their phones but were clearly listening. Melania continued, her accent carrying a practiced rhythm. "You speak very beautifully, Mr. Obama. But in today's world, kindness is not always enough. Sometimes you must show power, not compassion." For a moment, Obama simply watched her, the corners of his mouth curving slightly upward. "That's an interesting point," he said slowly. "But I'd argue that real power is in compassion. You can scare people into silence, but you can't inspire them that way." Melania's chin lifted. "But strong leaders don't ask for approval. They take charge. They win." Her tone was calm, but her words echoed her husband's philosophy, a subtle challenge to Obama's more humanistic ideals. The small circle of onlookers leaned in just a little closer. Obama chuckled softly, the sound low and disarming. "You know," he said, his smile widening, "I've met a lot of people who confuse dominance with leadership. They think leading means standing on top of others. But in my experience, the best leaders stand beside people, and sometimes behind them, lifting them up." The remark landed with quiet weight. A few in the crowd nodded, while others held back smiles. Melania hesitated, her expression flickering between confidence and unease. "But if you are too soft," she countered, "people will walk all over you. The world is not kind. You must be ready to fight." Obama laughed, and this time it wasn't a forced diplomatic chuckle, it was genuine amusement. "You're right, the world isn't kind," he agreed. "But that's exactly why kindness matters. It's easy to meet harshness with more harshness. Real strength is keeping your principles when it's inconvenient." The way he said it, calm, unbothered, yet piercing, shifted the air around them. Melania blinked, as if realizing the conversation had turned against her. She tried to recover, adding quickly, "But people need strong symbols, not speeches." Obama leaned slightly closer, lowering his voice just enough for those nearby to hear. "Symbols fade," he said with a smile, "but values last." Then, as if to diffuse the tension, he laughed again, an effortless, confident laugh that rolled through the small circle and caught others' attention. A few nearby guests joined in, clearly sensing that Obama had just won the verbal chess match. Melania forced a smile, the practiced one she wore at public events, but her eyes betrayed a flash of irritation. She hadn't expected him to counter so swiftly, so smoothly. She had walked into the conversation hoping to appear insightful, perhaps even authoritative, but now she was the one on the defensive. As the crowd shifted, a camera phone discreetly caught the exchange, capturing Obama's grin and Melania's faltering composure. The moment was small, almost forgettable in the swirl of diplomatic chatter, but the tension in her posture and the sparkle of amusement in his eyes told a larger story. Obama turned away politely, shaking hands with a delegate from Canada, while Melania stood there for a second longer, holding her glass a little too tightly. She managed a polite farewell and walked toward the other end of the ballroom, her heels clicking sharply against the marble. But behind her, That laugh, warm, confident, and distinctly Obama, hung in the air like a quiet declaration that intellect and grace would always outshine bravado. By the time the night ended, whispers had spread across the summit. "Did you see Obama and Melania?" Someone murmured. He laughed, and she froze. No argument, no raised voices, just a few words and a laugh that drew an invisible line between two very different visions of leadership. Obama's message had landed exactly as he intended, even without a microphone. The morning after the summit, the world woke up buzzing. What had started as a polite diplomatic exchange between Barack Obama and Melania Trump had turned into a viral storm overnight. Clips of the moment, Obama's calm laugh, Melania's uneasy smile, flooded social media. Headlines flashed across news networks. Obama laughs as Melania tries to lecture him on leadership, and Melania Trump's attempt to educate Obama backfires spectacularly. On TikTok, users replayed the clip with dramatic captions like, "When you try to school the professor," and "He laughed like a man who's been through worse." Comment sections filled with commentary dissecting every glance, every pause, every syllable. Obama didn't need to argue, one user wrote. He just smiled, and that was enough. Others praised his composure. "That's how you handle arrogance, with grace and humor." Behind the scenes, sources close to Melania said she was livid. What had been meant as an intelligent conversation had turned into a global punchline. She had spent years carefully crafting her public image, composed, refined, above the noise, and yet a few seconds of misplaced confidence had undone it all. She reportedly told an aide that the media twisted the moment, insisting that Obama's laughter had been disrespectful. "He laughed at me," she said sharply, pacing her private suite in Manhattan. "He thinks he's clever, but that was not professional." The aide tried to calm her, suggesting that perhaps the clip looked worse than it was. But Melania wasn't convinced. "He made me look foolish," she continued, her tone colder now. "People will not forget that." Meanwhile, Obama was back in Chicago, appearing utterly unfazed. When asked about the viral moment during a casual interview for a podcast, he simply laughed again. "Oh, that, no, there was nothing serious about it," he said, his tone as effortless as ever. Sometimes, when people come from different definitions of leadership, you just smile and move on. You don't have to win every argument to make a point. His words, delivered lightly, became another viral quote. Commentators on news panels debated the subtext. Obama's laugh wasn't mockery, one analyst said. It was a masterclass in restraint. He's spent decades being challenged by critics far louder than Melania Trump, and he's learned that dignity always wins. Another panelist disagreed, arguing that Melania had tried to hold her own in a room dominated by political heavyweights, and that the internet had been unfair. But even she had to admit, it's hard to argue with someone who disarms you with a smile. Days passed, and the story refused to fade. Late-night comedians turned the exchange into skits. One impersonator exaggerated Melania's tone, "Real leaders are strong, not kind," while another, playing Obama, laughed calmly and said, "Strength is kindness." The audience roared, and the moment cemented itself as a piece of pop culture. For Melania, it was humiliating. In her next public appearance, she avoided political commentary altogether. During a charity event, she spoke softly about children's education and community building, topics far removed from global leadership or strength. Observers noticed the shift. "It's like she learned her lesson," one journalist remarked. "She's steering clear of philosophical debates now." But those who knew her said the sting lingered. In private circles, she began to talk less about politics and more about image control. She consulted PR advisors on how to reframe the narrative. One suggested leaning into grace and humility, qualities that could turn public sympathy in her favor. "Don't fight the laugh," they told her. "Redirect it. Be the person who learns, not the one who resents." Meanwhile, Obama's team released a short clip from the summit showing him greeting world leaders with genuine warmth and laughter. The timing wasn't accidental. It reminded viewers that his brand, intellectual, kind, and composed, was intact and thriving. "You can't fake that kind of ease," one commentator said on CNN. "Obama knows exactly who he is. That's why no one can shake him." A week later, at a charity gala in D.C., a journalist cautiously approached Melania and asked about the viral moment. She paused, her polished smile returning. "I think sometimes people misunderstand confidence," she said carefully. "I respect Mr. Obama very much. We just see leadership differently. Maybe next time, we'll laugh together." The response was perfectly diplomatic, measured, poised, but everyone knew it had been rehearsed. Later that evening, the clip surfaced online. Some praised her for being gracious. Others noted the irony. She did learn to use humor after all, one tweet read, followed by laughing emojis. But buried beneath the online noise was a subtler truth. She had indeed taken something from that moment. Obama's laughter, which once embarrassed her, had also taught her that presence wasn't about domination, it was about self-assurance. For Obama, the story ended the way most of his public encounters did, with quiet victory. He had turned confrontation into comedy, tension into teaching. When a journalist later asked what he thought Melania had meant by strength, he smiled. "I think she meant conviction," he said. "And that's a good thing. As long as conviction doesn't become arrogance." He paused, then added with a grin, "And if we can laugh while learning, even better." The audience laughed with him. The viral moment that had begun with a clash ended with an echo of wisdom. Obama's laughter, once seen as mockery, now felt like mentorship. And though Melania had walked away feeling stung, the world saw what she perhaps hadn't yet realized. She hadn't lost a debate that night. She'd been taught, gracefully, by a master of calm power, one laugh at a time,